Hello, this is Dread from Epic Builds. In today's video topic, we're going to be showcasing a build from a friend of mine. His name is Fozin. He's actually a moderator in my Twitch chat. So one day I was shit-talking Ice Barrage because I had tried it after they buffed it and I could not find a build for it. But thankfully, my friend Fozin was kind enough to show me a version of Ice Barrage that did not completely suck. Now, this build's actually insanely efficient at farming monoliths, as you can off screen with it really hard thanks to the icicle projectiles that Ice Barrage shoots out and just the size of them. It allows you to pretty much clear monolith screens away, and it allows you to clear these empowered monoliths, which is this is all footage of empowered monoliths, like it's nothing, and it's absolutely amazing. Now, another little detail I also added with the build is a Volcanic Orb. I thought Volcanic Orb was useless as well, but like I said, I was proven wrong. Volcanic Orb has an insanely disgusting amount of single target damage if you utilize it with the shrapnel base, because the end explosion that Volcanic Orb does with the icicle projectiles, it will shotgun on a mob, like each individual projectile. That because usually Volcanic Orb has this end explosion, and when it explodes, it shoots out a bunch of projectiles, and that all shotguns inside the enemy and pretty much does an insane amount of damage, which allows us to simply clear monoliths like it's nothing. Because like we clear the entire screen with Ice Barrage, then we clear bosses easily with Volcanic Orb, and I think it's like one of the best pairings I've ever seen in terms of skills. Now, this is actually a build for all you people who really like cryomancers, like really cold builds and all that, but we're kind of sad after the nerfs to Glacier. I think this is a better build than Glacier, in my opinion, at least in terms of monolith farming. Now, for arena, that's a different discussion. This build is not a very good arena build. It's the biggest issue it has is since you have that delay on Ice Barrage, it will never be good for arena, sadly, just because a lot of mobs in arena will kill you before that delay goes off and kills the enemy. So it's better just to leave that to more powerful builds for arena, like for instance, Ellie Nova and Lightning Blast. But the thing is, this build's actually better than at farming monoliths than Ellie Nova Lightning Blast. So this actually gives this build purpose, which is insane. Um, Now, just so you guys know, the new patch is right around the corner, the new monolith patch, and I think this build will do amazingly for it, and I would heavily suggest it. Now, there are a few things we do with this build. So, for instance, we have the Icicle Burst uh, on what is it called? On Ice Barrage. There's like a little bit of a burst when it hits an enemy. It ice shatters, like, and that actually shotguns. So if you hit two different enemies with the ice shattering, it will actually kill, like it'll actually hit everything in the pack as well. So you can actually clear packs like it's nothing. Without that, it's kind of iffy on clearing packs, but thanks for the icicle burst, it actually clears packs like it's nothing. You don't need pierce, you don't need anything like that. It just buttery smooth, and it's absolutely amazing. And the issue I had before was I turned off the homing, right? I turned off the homing, and I thought that, turning off the homing would make it feel better because you would clear the screen easier. But no, the homing's really good. You don't want to play without the homing, and that was my fault. So now Ice Barrage is a very competent skill in the next patch, and might actually be a lot stronger considering that the new corruption stuff will allow us to use Monolith as our end game instead of having to focus on arena. So this might be a really good contender for high corruption farming. So we'll just have to see about that, right? But with that being said, let's get into the build, shall we? All right, here we are in game with our Ice Barrage build. Ice Barrage maybe because I didn't think that this was going to work, but it obviously did because I wouldn't be making a video otherwise. So this is a build based around Ice Barrage. So mainly we use Ice Barrage to do most of our damage, and how we utilize Ice Barrage here. Let's get into the skills here. So we have Ice Barrage here. Look at that tooltip DBS, absolutely amazing, right? Lots and lots of damage. But so the issue with Ice Barrage before was you see these more damage notes here. 90% more damage, 100% more damage, 16% more damage, 80% more damage. Well, back in the day, these used to read increased damage instead of more, and that caused Ice Barrage to hit like a wet noodle. But with the recent patch, they have changed all of these numbers to more damage, which fixed Ice Barrage pretty much, made it so it's actually viable now for endgame builds. Now, what we do is we take 2 points travel into Biting Cold, 3 points into Sublimination. This just makes our ice shards bigger, less fire rate, but it makes it so that they deal more damage. And we also run this node here, Frozen Ballista. So it deals significantly more damage, but it only shoots out 3 projectiles per thing. But with our build, thanks to the fact that we're running Cryogenesis for less duration, we actually only fire out 2 projectiles instead of just one, instead of 3, which is okay. We do plenty of damage with the first 2, and we don't need the third one anyways. Then we run one node into Wintry Blast so that we have extra projectiles, so it's more of an AoE, right? Without this node, it wouldn't be an AoE. Then we have Brittle Fragments as well. Ice Shards shatter on hit. This is what's giving us our AoE clear, as you'll hit a bunch of mobs in a pack, and the ice shards will all shotgun. Now, I don't know how much damage they actually do. All I know is I shoot into a pack and it kills everything. I have no idea how much damage it actually does, like I said, because everything's dead before I can check. So we're going to say that it's working. 3 points travel into Frigid Barrage, 1 point into Icy Burst. That makes it so that when we shoot first, we have 5 projectiles, plus on top of the other 5 projectiles from Wintry Blast. So the first barrage is 10 icicles, which is insane. Then we grab 3 points into Arctic Storm for 120% more damage. So the 5 from Ice Burst is getting the 120% here, then the 90% here, the 100% here, and then the 80% here. That's where all your damage comes from, right? So if we shoot here, I'll show you. That's 60,000, right? Well, that's a 30,000 hit. So the 5 projectiles here are what deals all of our damage for clear, right? Plus, obviously, the Brittle Fragments. Now, just so you know, you have to run this without Pierce, otherwise this will not work. But we don't need Pierce because we completely destroyed the entire pack anyways. Then we take 2 points into fire, 2 points travel. The fire rate's useless for us. Then 4 points into Cryogenesis for 80% more damage and less duration. But we don't care about the duration because we only shoot like 2 projectiles anyways. It's not like as if we're going for the other version of Ice Barrage that like shoots for a very long duration. So pretty much we just spam it instead of trying to use it as a... We use it as a burst skill instead of using it as like a pelting skill with a bunch of little projectiles. We just do a bunch of big projectiles. Now, what you can do is you can take 1 node out of Cryogenesis, right? And put 1 node into Ice Spire, and that will give you the 3rd projectile that we're missing, is the duration. But the thing is, I found that it's just not worth it because most of our damage comes from the burst, the Icy Burst anyways. So we might as well just keep that instead and just ignore this and skill the Icy Burst instead. And it works just fine because we don't need that much damage with Ice Barrage. We just need enough to clear because we're running Volcanic Orb. Now, Volcanic Orb, the way it works is we throw it out here, right? And it shoots a bunch of projectiles, but when it ends, it'll pop out and do a bunch of projectiles at the end. And all those projectiles can shotgun. So we're running Frozen Orb. So it's converted Frozen Orb, take 1 point travel into Winter's Fury. We have more chill chance on the tree as well. Then 5 points into Glacial Might. So 125% hit damage against chilled enemies. And we have chill chance from here. And we also have chill chance on the tree. So we have plenty of chill chance, make sure enemies are chilled. Then we take 2 points travel into Volatile Emission, 1 point travel into Ash Pelting, then 3 points into Eruption. If you get +2 to Volcanic Orb, you'd put 2 more points here. Then 3 points travel into Molten Core, and then 4 points into Volcanic Frenzy so that we have the 300% cooldown recovery speed so that we can spam it on the boss. And that's pretty much the build with that part. Like I said, you'll need to, I would get +2 to Volcanic Orb and get more shrapnel damage. It's about like 24% more damage right there if you get +2 to Volcanic Orb. So you can even have more single target. Now, how we deal with our mana, so we're at 300 mana, but what happens is we go to 0 mana, let me get the 0 mana here. So when we're at negative mana, we actually get a gigantic boost in mana thanks to focus. And why is that? Well, usually focus, we just gain a burst of mana and ward, right? 20 mana plus the 30 mana, so we get 50 mana bursts after a few seconds. But we also get this note here, no profusion, which gives us max mana gained while negative. So while we're at negative mana, we gain 20% of our missing mana, which is always going to be like a shit ton, like 20%. So like about, I think it's like 20% of 300 is like 60 from that, 60 flat from that. Then we also grab this, so it's 40% instead. So we get like 120 flat mana just from this alone. We do actually add a little bit of cooldown, but we also grab cooldown recovery speed because we're a sorcerer. We run cooldown recovery speed on our helmet. And we also, like I said, we also have so much banked mana that by the time we actually need focus again, right, it'll be off cooldown. So the cooldown actually isn't too much of an issue for us. Of course, we take 4 points into mana flooded, so we get more mana regen while we're channeling focus for more mana. 1 point into desperate mediation, so if you have 100% missing mana, you'll get 100% increased mana regen, which is really nice. 4 points from revelation, so you get more mana from the burst because we're holding it down. We're not turning off the burst by going no cooldown. Then we grab 1 point into energy infusion, so we get haste. So as we're using our mana and going to negative mana, right, in the monolith, as we're doing that, when we're sitting down, we'll get haste for a few seconds, which is really nice because it allows us to clear monoliths faster. Then we take 4 points into mind shell for travel. Like I said, the rest of the points don't really matter. The main points is just revelation, no profusion, and no infusion. Those are the most important ones. Everything else is kind of like just extra. Now for other skills, we do run teleport. So this is how we run teleport right now. We get the increased damage, we get the resistances, right? And then we get the stat buff duration. It's pretty usual way of running a teleport. I'm just running it for the reses right now because I'm not completely capped on reses, I think, right now. So I want to use that to cap my reses. And of course, 50% increased damage is 50% increased damage. Then for Flame Ward is your stereotypical Flame Ward setup. Like this is like everybody's Flame Ward setup, so it's not too special. So I'm just gonna pass through this. Everything will be in the build planner down below, by the way, if you need to look at the skill trees again. Now for passive tree here, we take 8 points into Scholar for HP and mana because we need mana on our gear and our tree so we can get to 300 max mana so that our idols work. So 23% increased cold damage, but doubled if you have over 300 max mana. We have 4 of these, so we have over 300 max mana. We're getting like 200% increased damage. I think it's like 200% increased damage max from these extra just by being at 300 mana. So we want as much flat mana as possible. Just some cast speed, just some intelligence for travel. 5 points into Knowledge of Destruction, so we have more crit because we need a lot of crit with this build. And then 1 point into Rune of Winter. You can actually take this out because we actually ended up going for Frozen Orb instead. So you can actually take this out, so ignore that one. We take 5 points into Elemental Affinity for some more Ellie res. It's about perfect when we run Teleport. We're like overcapped plenty, so you could probably take the points out of this as well if you just remember to teleport all the time. Then 8 points into Calculated Destruction for spell crit because we want as much as we can get. 8 points into Mana Shell for more mana because, like I said, we want to be over 300 mana. More mana here. 5 points into Arcane Momentum so that we have more cast speed. 1 point into Cryomancer Travel so that we can get 5 points into Chill of the Bones so we get Cold Pen. This build does not have that much Cold Pen, so this is just free damage. Now you can run Cold Pen on the Amulet for another like 11%, I think. And then you can also run you can also run Cold Shred from Heorot, the Blessing, which will increase your damage significantly, especially against single targets. So that's what I'd heavily suggest, getting Cold Shred from Heorot. Then we'll have 5 points into Afterglow, so we get 80% increased damage from this, and 50% increased damage. 8 points into Crackling Precision, where our stuff isn't lightning, but it increased crit is increased crit. We might as well grab it. 5 points into Arcane Obliteration for more crit multi. We're about at 239%, but this brings us up to 300%. You'll want to be at 400% crit multi later on, but right now with my current gear setup, I don't have that much crit multi. You can definitely go for way more crit multi than I have right now if you have better gear. 5 points into Spell Slinger for adapted spell damage and cast speed, because we want as much adapted spell damage as possible, because we're forced to utilize a catalyst. So we have to actually get a lot of adaptive spell damage to make up for the fact that we're not using a staff. Then 8 points into Elemental Ascendance for Ellie Res and increased damage. You can probably get rid of these nodes now that we're running Teleport for our Res. Then 5 points into Archmage. We get 15 flat. We have over 200 mana, so we're at 300 mana, so we get 15 flat from this. Then 4 points into Recollection, so that we get more cooldown recovery speed. If you did not know, this is based on a cooldown. This is also based on a cooldown. Like, all of our skills are cooldown based, so it's really nice to have cooldown recovery speed everywhere you can get it. That's pretty much it. For the rest of your points, for 13 more points, I would just heavily suggest filling out the rest of this crit and crit multi and just getting as much mana as possible and damage. And now let's get into the gearing. So for gearing, we have cold damage idols. You just want as many cold damage idols as possible for your idol setup. For your helmet, we want cooldown recovery speed and mana. You want as much mana as possible, like I said. For the amulet, we just need crit, cold pen, maybe crit multi instead of the crit, dependent on how much crit you already have. On your weapon, you want spell critical strike chance and increased damage, or crit multi if you have enough increased damage. You want the chill on hit so that our Volcanic Orb deals more damage, so you definitely want the chill on hit. And then you also want the slow on hit as well, so that enemies are slower to try to attack you. Used to run Armor Shred here, but the issue, I don't think you can run Armor Shred on a Scepter, but you used to run Armor Shred because Armor Shred would actually work for non-physical stuff, but there was a nerf to that, so you don't use Armor Shred anymore. For chests, we run the adaptive spell damage base so that we get more flat. We run plus to Ice Barrage. You get plus 2 to Ice Barrage, but I found plus 1 to Ice Barrage is fine because we don't really need plus 2, really. It doesn't really do anything for us because I really do not like this node. You could run this node if you want to get the extra burst from Ice Barrage, but it's just not worth it because the reduced movement speed just makes it feel terrible. You could get one node into Biting Cold, so that would be like 8% more damage, but like I said, it's not worth trying to brick your chest over, if that makes sense. But plus 1 is plenty worth. Now, for just one affix, yeah. Then of course we just stack HP because we're just an HP build, HP and endurance. That's our setup is HP and endurance. Just don't get hit. For monoliths, you don't need as much protection as you do in arena. Now for our offhand, we're running a catalyst for the base critical strike chance. We need this, otherwise we won't crit nowhere near as often. Get some mana. If you get enough mana from like an Orion's Eye later on, which you can definitely trade off this for an Orion's Eye later on if you manage to drop one, you can actually drop that mana and run crit multi there. Then of course we run res and res. Then for our rings, we want spell damage and then cold damage, and then just HP and endurance. For a ring, just more damage, just critical strike avoidance as well, because I was trying to get critical strike avoidance capped, because so that you can just run as many crit modifiers in the monolith as possible, so you don't have to worry about that. Then endurance percentage as well, so we're capped on endurance. For gloves, health, cast speed, crit. The void res gloves, pretty simple. Health, vitality, movement speed, the cold res boots. This is actually a pretty good pair of boots, other than the armor. Like, that could be just flat health, but that's like fine. It's like fine and dandy. Now for our relic, we get the crit multi, just double crit multi, crit the spell critical strike chance, endurance, health. That's pretty much what we get there. And that's pretty much it for the gearing. Like I said, you would want to upgrade to an Orion's Eye so that you have all this mana, so you can focus all this mana into other places and get crit multi, increased damage. You get all this mana, you could get like plus to skills on stuff. You can get crit multi everywhere if you just simply upgrade to an Orion's Eye, but that's much later on, so you can just ignore that for the beginning, but get an Orion's Eye later. Just upgrade all these pieces by getting rid of all this mana on gear. And that's pretty much it for the build overall. I was very impressed by this build. I'm sorry for the quality of said video. I actually just picked up a new full-time job, So I'm kind of trying to balance work and also trying to get videos out at the same time. And now that the patch is coming, I thought I'd make a mono focus build. With that being said, thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day wherever you're at, and bye!